Hello everybody and welcome to CFO Conversations. I've got the great pleasure of welcoming back Glyn Bailey into the studio today.
Thank you.
And today's subject is pretty out there for the world of accountants, and I'm going to show you my book because it's called The Imagination Age, and I've got an empty page as you can see here. So that's a good way to start our conversation today. Glyn, you talk about this age now being the imagination age. What do you mean by that?
The imagination age is a theoretical age that follows the information age, and we've all been in the age of information where we now recognise we can access pretty much anything we want via Google, all the books we've read. Technology has really allowed us not to have knowledge be the issue.
Yeah.
The imagination age is taking this a step further, that says essentially economic value going forward is going to be created with creativity and imagination. Mm-hmm. And it's only really then using our right brain thinking where creativity lies that value can be created. But when I think about finance and where it's been in the past in our profession, we've been predominantly left brain thinkers, so analytical brain thinking, solvable problems, but we haven't really brought much of the creativity and imagination to that space. Yeah. So when I look at you with your blank sheet of paper, that's exactly what we're starting with, is to say, what could we imagine our finance community to be doing differently in the future than what we see today?
Yeah. And I think what I'm noticing in the industry is so many people coming in and disrupting, and so many startups, because it's actually easier for people to come in with that blank sheet of paper and actually disrupt the bigger corporates. And both of us have worked for big corporates, and they just can't throw everything out, right? I mean, we've spoken about the sunk cost, and finance people know all about that.
Absolutely. So your point about startups, the last stats from the Australian Bureau of Statistics said there's 60% of actively trading businesses now are solopreneurs. And I look at that sea change and think there's something happening that's forcing people to step out of their corporate space and try something new, because the pace of change is so slow within the corporate. But when it comes to imagination, when we're in a corporate, we're stuck with often, and this isn't true for all, the case of this is the way things have always been done. And we want to make change happen, but we're doing it in really small increments. But we do that because we've made a huge investment in the past into this system and the way it's worked. And as you said about sunk costs, as finance people, we recognise what we've sunk into that past, but it also holds us into thinking, well, because I've invested that in this space, I need to continue with that path going forward. Yeah. And I look at it and go, well, as a finance person, we know what a sunk cost is. You made a choice based on a set of conditions at the time to make an investment. Where you are at now is re-establishing whether that investment is still going to serve you well in the new direction you want to go. Yeah. And if we don't look at things in the imagination age in that way, we're going to have too many constraints to our thinking that will stop that right brain flow of creativity of what could a possibility be. So could we imagine a finance world where we didn't have to create budgets? Could we imagine not having a forecast cycle? Could we imagine not having a 5-year planning strategy? Most will say, don't be daft, how can that ever be possible? But 30 years ago, driverless cars weren't conceived. So imagine what we could conceive if we allowed ourselves to play with something different. And when I think about sunk costs, I'll relate it to sort of personal examples. How often have we invested in relationships with our friendships, our acquaintances, our colleagues, that have served us for a period of time, and we're still holding on to them, hoping they'll serve us in the future, but actually you've grown, you've changed, they've changed, and you're trying to hold on to the past, hoping it will continue to serve you in the future, as opposed to making a choice in that moment to say, actually, where I'm going is here and what I need is something different. That investment needs to be elsewhere rather than trying to nurture and nourish something that perhaps has served its purpose.
And so I think it's about continuous assessment to lead to continuous improvement. And I think as accountants, as finance leaders, as people that are driving change in our business, and we've spoken so much about business partnering, that you've actually got to show that different thinking and be that creativity around different thoughts. What got us here isn't going to serve us or get us to the next stage.
And we see it with technology. We see that things are being disrupted, but it's those that are going to be the linchpins of the future, those that are able to break the mold and do something different, imagine a world that's different, that will survive that automation cycle, because you're using both your analytical and your creative side to create value, and that's ultimately where the power lies.
Yeah, and a conversation we were having earlier around, when you think of the word accountant, wouldn't it be lovely to have this view in the future that an accountant isn't just about compliance and number crunching, it's actually about delivering value, thinking differently, enabling success. I mean, that would be what we all aspire to, right?
Oh, absolutely. And just to have some fun with it, like, you know, accountant as a word doesn't conjure up images of bright, bushy-tailed individual ready to be a change maker within the organisation. It connotates typically someone who's, boring and compliant and, not that exciting, reliable yet yawn, you know. And actually imagine if we could have the word accountant being synonymous with enthusiasm, excitement, energy, and all of the good stuff that, you know, the marketing and sales teams typically are connotated for. And I see a world where those finance individuals that have embraced creativity, have embraced new ways of thinking, really being disruptive in their field, so that the word accountant isn't synonymous with dull, it's with change maker and linchpin. I'd love for that change to happen.
Yeah, that's great. We could talk about the imagination age for a long time. Thanks, Glyn, that's given us a lot of food for thought.
Thank you.